I am so excited for today's video. Faber Castell have released 20 new Polychromos pencils, extending their set from 120 pencils to 140 pencils. Polychromos pencils are one of the most popular coloured pencil brands for artists, and they are superior quality oil-based coloured pencils. However, one thing that many of us feel has been lacking from the Polychromos range is a variety of lighter colours and pastel tones. So today we are going to look at the 20 new colours that are available to us, create swatch chart lists, colour mixing charts, give our first impressions, and also try them out in a drawing. All of the charts that I created are available to download for free on my website, and if you do enjoy these kinds of videos, please make sure that you like, hype and subscribe, as it really helps me to grow my channel. But anyway, let's jump into today's video. Now, I know that some of you have been struggling to get your hands on these pencils, and that is because they are being slowly filtered into the market. Now, I was able to pre-order my set of the Polychromos pencils from Cult Pens, and I pre-ordered them back in July, ready for dispatch in August, which was when they officially dropped in the UK. And what I will do is I will link a couple of websites where you might be able to order these pencils, but just bear in mind that they are selling out fast, so you might need to pre-order them for the next batch, or you might have to get the company to email you when they are back in stock. But I have no doubt that going forward there will be lots more places selling them and they will be more readily available. I purchased my set of the 20 pencils in the UK for around £45, which works out at around £2.25 per pencil. Obviously, the cost may vary depending on where you live, but I do find that this is a very reasonable price, and it is very comparable with other sets of Polychromos pencils and coloured pencils as well. Faber Castell have also confirmed that these pencils will be available as open stock as well. So what that means is you will be able to buy individual replacements of these pencils too. Although you can purchase these pencils in their own separate tin, it is very important to note that these pencils are an extension set and they're not designed to be a standalone set. So if you already own the set of 120 pencils, these pencils will just help to bulk out this set a little bit more and fill in some of the gaps of colours that are missing. It's not designed to be a standalone set. If you are completely new to Polychromos pencils, then I wouldn't start out with this set. I would start out by using one of the regular sets from Polychromos, and the smallest set that you can start with is the set of 12 pencils. The set of 12 pencils is a good starter kit because it contains all of the core colours that you need, whereas this set doesn't. Light fastness refers to a pencil's ability to resist against fading or discoloration when exposed to light such as UV rays. Light fastness is tested by exposing pigments to a light source for a set period of time and then comparing them to unexposed samples. Polychromos pencils use the blue wall scale, and they actually use 3 different star ratings for their Polychromos pencils. A light fast rating of 3 means that pencils have the maximum light fastness and they will last for around 100 plus years. A light fast rating of 2 stars means that pencils will have a fade resistance of approximately 25 plus years. And pencils with a light fast rating of 1 star means that they will have a fade resistance of approximately 5 plus years. Light fastness is important if you are doing commissions or you're selling your drawings, and that is because you want to make sure that your artwork is going to be very well preserved and is not going to fade and discolour very quickly over time. In this set of pencils, there are 14 pencils with a light fast rating of 3, 5 pencils with a light fast rating of 2, and 1 pencil with a light fast rating of 1. So I do like the fact that most of the pencils have the maximum light fast rating, and I will definitely be using these in my work. And I have also made sure to include the light fast ratings of all the pencils in my charts that you can download on the website. So let's take a look at the range of pencils that you get in this set. And the first thing that I noticed was there is a good variety of pastel and lighter tones, which many of us have wanted to see within the Polychromos range. The pencils come in a very sturdy tin, and there is a leaflet inside which just gives you more information on the pencils, including all of their light fast ratings. I do like the fact that they've tried to separate the lightest tones and the more brighter tones in this set as well. I do think that is a really nice touch, how they've tried to incorporate a good variety of colours. I definitely think that some of these pencils will really fill in some of the gaps that we have in the Polychromos range, and some of these lighter tones will be great to use for highlights, also base colours and nude tones as well. Some of the few light shades would look really nice in portraits. If we take a close look at the build quality of these pencils, I'm going to show you some up close shots of the Polychromos pencils from this set. And Polychromos pencils have a superior build quality and they are very well made. On the side of the pencil you can see that there is a gold inscription of the pencil name and the Lightfast rating, and also Polychromos pencils have a protective barrel on the end of them, so if you accidentally drop them it can protect the lead inside the casing, and the lead is also centered inside the wooden barrel as well, which is very important because it allows that lead to be a bit more sturdy and durable. So these pencils definitely live up to the standard of the Polychromos range. One thing that I like to do when I get any new sets of pencils is to create colour swatches. This is because it's important to see how your pencils look on the paper and get a feel for them as well. I've created swatch charts of the 20 pencils, all 140 pencils, and I've also created gradient swatches as well. So if we take a look at the 20 pencils first, I definitely love the range of colours that we have, and I can see myself using these pencils in my drawings. For example, some of the lighter greens and brown tones would look really nice in landscape drawings. Say for example you were drawing trees or branches. And as I said earlier on, the few light shades would look really nice in portrait drawings because they have that very warm nude tone to them. I also love the richness of the Perinon Orange, Red Jasper and Pyrrole Red, and you will see me use these pencils later on when I am drawing an orange. Most of the pencils feel really nice and creamy and buttery like the majority of Polychromos pencils, and I love the way that they feel on the paper and lay down and blend. However, I found that it was quite hard to lay some of the pencils down and they just didn't have that same consistency as the majority of the Polychromos pencils. For example, some of the really light blue tones, purple tones and pink tones didn't lay down as softly as some of the other colours. Some of the colours are so light that it is really hard to see them, and so they'd be great for undertones or lighter tones, but you would probably need to incorporate some other colours in to really ramp up that saturation of colour. I also noticed that some of the pencils are very similar to some discontinued shades within the Polychromos range. So for example, I noticed that 339 Tyrian Purple is a very similar colour to a discontinued colour 139 Light Violet, and that is a colour that has been discontinued from the Polychromos range for many years. But the colours are really similar and it's nice that they've incorporated this back into the set. So overall, I do really like the colour range that we've got with the new set of pencils. But I do think it would be nice to see some lighter blue tones, darker yellowy greens, turquoise colours, and maybe some mid-tones. There is more transition colours between the lightest and darker colours. I've also created a swatch chart list for all 140 pencils, so I've included the first 120 pencils and then the 20 new pencils below, and at some point I will look at analysing the colours and slotting them into the previous set of pencils, but for now that is what I have done, and you can download this chart from my website. Creating colour mixing charts, especially when you have smaller sets of pencils or extension sets like this, is really important because it will help stretch your colour palette even further. So you can mix lots of different colours together to create new shades of colour, and one thing that I like to do is I like to create colour families. So for example, I have mixed together a lot of the yellow, orange and red tones, and this will just help to extend those colour families even more and create more variety of shades within the colour families. You don't have to stick with colour families though, you can literally mix any colours together to create lots of new shades of colour and a real variety of colours. And I would actually recommend that you do that for the smaller sets or extension sets like this. So it just goes to show that even with a set of pencils like this, you can create hundreds of new shades of colour by creating mixing charts like what I've done. You do need to remember though that with this set, it's not a standalone set and there are some core colours missing, for example, white and black. You also want to make sure that if you are creating colour mixing charts, then you write down the names of the pencils that you're using to create your different shades of colour. That way it will be much easier for you to just pick out the right pencils that you need to create that exact shade of colour. So now that we've taken a first look at these pencils and we've run through things like colour mixing charts, let's put these pencils into practice in a drawing. And it was a little bit hard trying to find a reference photo that would fit within these pencils, but I ultimately decided to choose a reference photo of an orange because I do have quite a lot of yellow, orange and red tones in this set, which I think would be really good to use for this drawing. I spent a little bit of time before I started the drawing process using an embossing tool and preserving the white grain of the paper. So what happens is when you're using an embossing tool, it gently scores the paper and flattens the tooth of the paper so that those areas stay white. And this is very important to do with a set like this where you don't actually have a white pencil. So what I did was I gently scored the paper in areas where there's a lot of bright highlights and very fine details. So when I start colouring in the orange, I always start with my base layers, so my undertones. And I primarily use the few light yellowish and the few light reddish for this because these are nice warm light tones. I always make sure that I work in small sections of a drawing as well. So for example, with this orange, I focused on one segment of the orange at a time, focused on getting each segment perfectly rendered before I moved on to the next section. And by working in sections, it really helps to break the drawing process down and just make it a little bit more manageable for me. When I start adding in some midtones, I'm primarily using the Aralide yellow, the golden ochre and the Perinon orange, and I'm using a medium pressure as I start to build up on these midtones. So these tones will not only help me transition from the lightest to darker tones, but they're going to add a lot more richness and saturation into the orange as well. For the shadows, I'm using a combination of the Perinon orange again, but also mixed in with some of the red jasper, and just incorporating this reddish tone really helps to add in some more intense shadows. And it's really important to add in lots of shadows into a drawing because it really ramps up that value and contrast in the drawing, which also creates a more realistic effect. And as I start to apply my final layers and I get ready to burnish these colours in, which is blending the colours, I do apply a more firmer pressure with my pencils. And to apply a more firmer pressure with my pencils, I always hold the pencil closer to the tip because it helps me to have a more firmer grip and more control over the pencils. I definitely found that these pencils were softer in comparison to some of the other pencils in the set. So for example, I mentioned earlier that some of the light blues, purples and pinks were a little bit harder to get that consistent feel, whereas these pencils are much more softer. And once I finished this drawing, I took some time at the end going in with an X-Acto knife and just pulling up some additional highlights and details. And that is what really finishes this drawing off and gives it that super realistic look. So you can see by the end of this drawing, I was able to achieve that realistic look that I was after, and I'm really happy with the results. So we're just coming towards the end of this video now, and I really hope that you enjoyed my review of the 20 new Polychromos pencils. If you did, then please don't forget to like, hype and subscribe to my channel because it really helps me out. And you can also become a channel member by clicking the join button, and you'll get access to lots of exclusive rewards on my channel. Don't forget that you can download all of the charts that I used in today's video for free on my website, and the link is in the description. But until next time, keep creating and I will see you soon. Bye everyone.